try to ask him for his name, she would only smile at him. With this, he would smile back at her. As usual for Karina, she walked into her first class of the day, U.S. History, about 10 minutes early. Though this wasn't her favorite class, she did enjoy little short conversations with her teacher, Mrs. Henderson. Mrs. Henderson, who was elderly, late 50s, maybe early 60s, chose to spend a few moments each morning talking to Karina about almost anything that could come to a person's mind. For anyone else to listen to these conversations may cause a person to think that the old lady was a mental case. Karina, on the other hand, listened very well and enjoyed most of the topics that Mrs. Henderson had brought up. During these conversations, Karina, over a period of time, had began to relate to Mrs. Henderson about weird dreams that she has had over a large period of time. It was about the age of 10 that Karina's dreams had began. The dreams were sometimes good, and then other times they are bad. So bad that she would wake up in the middle of the night scared and crying. As with most dreams, moments after she would awake, the memory of the details couldn't be remembered. She knew some of the details, yet not enough to make sense at the night terrors. At exactly 8 o'clock the bell, signaling the start of the first class, had began to chime. With it, the rest of the students started to file in through the door. Though it would normally seem as though the class was taking forever to end, this particular day seemed to fly by pretty fast. Then, as she left the classroom to head to her next class, math, she saw, from a distance, the face of the student she began to have a crush on. As a surprise to her, however, the young man stopped right in front of her. "Hello, how are you doing?" he asked. Shocked, Karina looked around her to see if there was anyone else that the handsome gentleman could possibly be talking to. Not seeing anyone else, she turned back to face him. He was perhaps a couple of years older than herself, dark blonde hair, nicely trimmed, blue or greenish eyes, and maybe 140 pounds. "I'm doing good. How are you?" she asked as she began to blush. "I'm all right. What's your name?" he asked as he began to smile ear to ear at the sight of her blushing. "My name is Karina." As she said this, a long-time bad habit of hers seemed to take over. This habit was a combination of her toes both turning towards one another, knees inward, and then sticking her index finger in the corner of her mouth just enough to chew on her nail. "Well, my name is David. Would you be willing to go out on a date with me, Karina?" At this, the handsome young man reached out and took a hold of the arm that was still raised as Karina continued to chew, now even more vigorously on her fingernail. "How about right after our last class? About 3:30, he continued as he still held on to her arm. "Yeah?" Karina started while still in shock. 3:30 would be great." Lowering her arm, she offered David a handshake. Taking her hand up in his own, he shook it. 3:30 it is. I'll see you in just a couple of hours, okay?" "That would be great, thank you," she said, and then, once again, put her finger back into her mouth as he began to walk away. The entire episode of formally meeting David had caused Karina to feel like she was in shock. This wasn't the first time that she had been asked out on a date. However, this was the first time that she had been asked since she had began to get the thought of wanting a family of her own. She had even gone as far as wanting and wishing that she had at least 2 kids. She had always thought about her own childhood and had decided that she would want at least 2 children so that they would have each other for playmates on rainy days. She personally had grown up as a single child and had long decided that she couldn't wish that upon her worst enemy. It seemed to Karina that the last 2 hours of the day had felt as long as the first 6. It had also seemed to her that she had never seen the hands on the clock move so slow as they did just prior to the class ending at 3:15. Then, as she walked out the front door of the school, she found David waiting for her. "Hey, how are you doing?" he asked as their eyes met one another. David was well dressed, as he had every time that she had seen him prior to this point, and he seemed to be very professional in the way that he spoke to people and stood upright, rather than slouching as many people do. "So, how old are you, Karina? If you don't mind me asking, that is?" I'm 14.